I've got some printouts here. When I came to recovery, I was a mess. I used to have to call my sponsor and ask, well, do I eat my cereal first or should I take a shower first? I mean, there wasn't much I knew how to do. I had to start from scratch. But, that wasn't a bad place to start from. In my history, my idea of fun had gotten me into this program. So I knew that my idea of fun had to go. And I was perfectly willing to put on a nun's robe, shave my head, wear the veil, and, go into a convent if needed. My life was so miserable. I fully believed I'd never have fun again. And if I was living as a nun and got none, that was okay with me, as long as I could give up the misery that was my life. Well, I was real lucky to have a sponsor who not only laughed at me, but taught me to laugh at myself. And she was having a good time in recovery, and she was not going to let me be too miserable in recovery. One of the things that she always had me do, and it's a single suggestion for fun, is to I used to have to sleep with the T-shirt of my ex-husband. He's the one, my last ex-husband, who he was the one who got me into this program. I was so miserable, and my withdrawal was so bad. And so she said, well, that's all right. You can keep that T-shirt. I mean, it had been years. It didn't smell like him anymore, but it was symbolic. It was like going to bed with my little bunny or something. And but when I would call her late at night and say, oh, I want to call him, she'd say, do you have that T-shirt? And I'd say, yes. And she'd say, scrub the toilet with it. And then if you still want to call him, call me after that. And, so that's a real good withdrawal activity. And I would laugh at myself because that's really where that relationship belonged, was in the toilet. So, it kind of reinforced what I was learning in recovery. But she was also committed to service. She said, when the newcomer comes to the meeting, you need to be at the door saying welcome. And at the beginning, if you'll notice under how to start on your printout, we say having fun takes planning and responsibility. It doesn't just happen. You have to make time to have a good time. And the best place to start, I believe, is getting involved in service at meetings by promoting fun in recovery as part of the meeting agenda. And this is what my sponsor taught me to do. She told me that the meeting before and after the meeting was just as important as what I was learning in the meeting. And she told me I had to come early and stay later after the meeting. And then at the beginning, she was glued to my side because we also went to some co-ed meetings. And I needed adult supervision. And so then my job was I had to go up to everybody who had been at the meeting, introduce myself, say I was new, and say, is anybody going to coffee after the meeting? Would you like to go to coffee after the meeting? I would like to continue the recovery discussion. And it was a script. I used to do that at bars. Had my little script. Honey, I had a new script. Okay, and it was very scary. But she was right by my side. So that way I could not make it a line. It was real. And because one of the benefits she taught me of recovery is that I never had to act out again, and I never had to be alone. And for someone like me, being alone was the worst thing in the world. So I liked that part of it. That was real hopeful. And if people said no, she told me that was okay. I would just go to the next one. And because she said, believe me, sooner or later, someone will say yes. And she said, and if they don't, get their phone number and say that you're going to call them, between now and the next meeting, because you'd really like to continue the recovery discussion. The script didn't change. It was great. And it taught me how to reach out and not to wait for others to come up to me. So it all starts at the meeting. But like she told me, I had to create my recovery network first. That if one of my hands was in her hand as my sponsor and my other hand was in the hand of the newcomer, then I would stay anchored in recovery and I could stay sober and have fun. Because she said, haven't you had enough misery? Yes, I've had enough misery. Aren't you ready to have fun? Yes, I am ready to have fun. So in your little printout, we have a group in Houston that was started some years ago by one of the gals who was just tired of being lonely on Friday nights after a breakup. And we are so grateful to her because it was her idea. And she's still in recovery, and she's still part of Recovery Gals Gone Wild. And this is a weekly Friday night event. We try to rotate the chair at least once a year because you get kind of burnt out doing it. Although everybody comes up with ideas. There's a core of about 30 or 40 women on the mailing list. And I don't see why this couldn't work for guys as well. John, is there anything like that in Austin that you know about for guys?
There's a lot of guys going wild, but I don't know of a list per se.
No, this has to be recovery guys gone wild.
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, see, you got something you can bring back to Austin now. And what it consists of, we have an email contact list. Now, a lot of the names on this list are not real names. They're like, Chi-Chi and Chapelwood, that kind of stuff. So there's, and just, initials so that people's anonymity is protected. Or do drop in at yahoo.com, and we don't talk about recovery per se using this email list. This is strictly the social contact list for Recovery Gals Gone Wild. And the email goes out by the previous Wednesday with the event that's going to be that Friday. We run in the park sometimes and then eat out at Beck's Prime, which is the good hamburger place near where we run. We've had pool parties and potlucks. We have poker nights. We've painted pottery at the Mad Potter. And Becky's been to the pottery session. What did you make the last time we went?
Made a trivet, and it's functional, something I could actually use, so I enjoy it every day.
Well, I made a kitty cat that I painted that's supposed to hold a cooking spoon. And I have to dust it like every month because I still haven't cooked anything with it, but it looks really pretty on my stove, And I feel like a real cook because I have a spoon holder. And the chair provides the time, the place, if there's any cost. We tend to try to do free things because this isn't about spending money. It's about getting everybody together and doing something fun. In Houston, we have many free events at Miller Outdoor Park. And what we'll do is we'll gather at the nearest Starbucks and then caravan in just one or two vehicles. And that way it doesn't cost much for parking, and we have the fun of getting there as well as spreading the blankets and listening to the music or whatever is going on. Charlie, do you go to any men's meetings in Dallas?
Yes, I go to a couple of men's meetings, and we have a social event every month that we get together, but it's a mixed group social event of men and women, and we practice having relationships, healthy relationships, socializing, just talking to each other and getting to know who the other person is.
Charlie, why don't you take the microphone and explain a little bit how this came about? Was this just a natural outgrowth from meetings after the meeting?
Yes, what we did is we decided we wanted to have more fellowship outside of our meetings. So the first one we had was a breakfast on Saturday morning, and it was set for 8 o'clock in the morning. And some people said, well, if you'd make it for 9, I'll come. And we decided that we would make it for 8 o'clock. And if people at 8 o'clock wanted to come, they'd come. And if people, didn't want to come at 8 o'clock, they didn't come. But to go in and try to do something that accommodates everybody was being a little codependent, we felt. Then the next social event we had was a potluck dinner at someone's house. And everybody brought a different dish for the potluck dinner. And one night we started doing things that members within our group were to show off their talents. And one of the ladies was a gourmet cook, and I'm a gourmet cook, so she and I got together and planned a gourmet dinner, and we had everybody put $10 in the pot, and then we bought food and cooked, and it was a sit-down dinner, and you had to dress for the evening. And so we did different things like that.
Thank you for sharing that, Charlie. I like the food things. Of course, I also have issues around my food, so I have to be careful. When I gave up smoking, I discovered that I could benefit from some exploration of how I could use food instead of cigarettes to feel good about myself. And I will say that the longer I'm in recovery, the more I can use anything if I don't stay in fit spiritual condition in my core issue, which is this program. I've laughed and said, I could fall for the doorknob if it felt good enough, and I was around it long enough. And that's why when people say, "Oh, my higher power is the doorknob," I thought, "Be real, I'm addicted to the doorknob." Does anybody else have any activities that they know of in their recovery group that get the members together, either maybe sporting events? Does anybody know of like a softball league or a bowling group?
Hi, I'm Melinda from Australia. Hi. The Saturday morning meeting that I was a member of in Sydney, the STEPS meeting in Randwick, usually in winter we go and have a lunch by the ocean, and in summer we all go swimming afterwards, which is really lovely because it's actually a nice physical activity, and you're in it with a group of sober people if there are any sort of triggers around the sort of swimming, which is, really nice. And we also do things like we have a group Christmas Eve party where everyone can come along and brings a gift to put into the basket, and we have a meeting in a big open space in a park, and we always have a New Year's Eve party as well, so there's a safe fellowship place to go on those sorts of holiday events.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Melinda. One of the things that I had a problem with also when I came to recovery was that I thought I knew how to have fun, but all my requirements for fun involved getting ready to do the fun so that when I met the guy who was at the fun, then the fun could really be fun. And I had never explored dance just for dancing, or bowling just for bowling, or swimming just for swimming. So one of the things that was very helpful for me was lessons in things that I thought might be fun if I only knew how to do them on my own. And I signed up there is a group in Houston called SSQQ, and they have real reasonable dance lessons. I mean, you can go for practically a whole semester for $36. And I had always wanted to learn to tango. And when I called, I said, "But I don't have a partner." And they said, "Well, nobody has partners here. That's why they come. And then that's where you meet your partners to dance with." And he said, "Everybody rotates. You dance with different people all the time." And I thought, well, this is perfect. It's something I can go to by myself, but there's enough people there that I don't feel oh, poor me, they're all couples and I'm the only person who's alone. In that sense, all of us were alone. And I talked it over with my sponsor, and she said, oh, I want to go too. Because she said, I've always wanted to learn to tango. So we both went and we learned how to tango. So it helps to have a recovery buddy, but you can still do things on your own that can end up being a good group thing. And there was no one there that I would have figured was a candidate anyway, but it was kind of nice having my sponsor with me anyway. Would you like to give us some ideas?
When we completed our step class, we had bonded together as sisters so much we didn't want to stop. Because we were good friends and support group to each other. So we meet once a month. We either have a dinner or we have a lunch, or even if somebody has a crisis or whatever, we might call an emergency dinner or lunch or something like that. So we stay current with each other, and it's always around fun at someone's house, a potluck or some eating event.
Thank you very much. We had some people who came in late. This session is being taped. If you speak at this meeting, we encourage you to be anonymous. This is a program of anonymity. We did read the anonymity statement before we began. If you'd like to use a different first name than you usually do, that's okay. But this is being taped, and your speaking during this meeting does indicate your consent to have this tape used. And are any of you people who came in late a member of the media? Okay, great. We're required to ask that. And the subject today is fun. In case you're in the wrong meeting room, you can go out and go to the next one. On the final page of the little printout I gave out, I did put down some fun things that you can do yourself. And I also, on the bottom, I did put my name and email address, which I'm not going to announce out loud. But if you can think of more fun things after you leave the conference or your group starts anything, I'd appreciate your letting me know, because I'm a fun type of gal, and I want to know all the fun things that other people are doing. But I was really interested in Charlie's group thing because it was co-ed. I've only been involved in one co-ed group, and it was an outgrowth of a Saturday morning meeting, but we were not early risers. And that was a good group because it was formed precisely because the group, in sharing one morning just as part of the topic was, well, how do you have fun in recovery? And it was like a wah-wah meeting. Everybody started whining. It's like, yeah, I'm in recovery. I'm not acting out, but I'm not having any fun. And then it was like, and I don't know how to have fun. So that became the name of the group effort. It was the Saturday Learning to Have Fun group. And at first it was a real stretch because it was like, well, fun should be spontaneous. Fun should be something that just comes up. And the problem with that is that most of the ways we had fun are, now that we're in recovery, are dangerous for us. So it's like any learned skill. We have to be instructed how to do it and also unlearn the things we used to do. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm going to have to pause again. We do have some new people coming in. This meeting is being taped. If you share in this meeting, you are giving your consent to being taped. Okay. Anonymity is the foundation of all our traditions. Please remember that when you give your share. And are any of you people who entered the room members of the media? Okay, thank you very much. We that was not the exact wording, but it's over there, and but that's as best I can that I remember the intent of it. We want to make sure that we don't end up being the lead feature on what is it? The San Antonio Light is. That used to be a real rag. Is it any better? And I'm sorry, I got my back to some people. But that was a good group because it was a co-ed group and it wasn't built around food. It was event oriented, and we only had it once a month. So I think, like Charlie found with his group, we could plan a little better since it was just once a month. And you might consider that if you're going to launch a recovery event program for either your meeting or your group. We did a lot more matinee type things of shows where people knew in advance how much it cost. And it was good because they could bring their significant others who were in other recovery programs as well. We also had people who had custody of their children on a weekend, and this allowed them to, we had some events, they were pool, beach events where they could, again, if it was an age appropriate event, they could bring their children. We had games. We went out and did glider planes and and stuff like that. So the possibilities are endless. It's but we have to get used to. For me, it was like there's like the German nation, a French nation. I had to learn to go to the imagination without fantasy, because fantasy was a huge component. It was a real recovery issue for me. I could get into my head in a nanosecond. So here's a situation where I had to use my imagination. Well, what would be fun for me that is recovery fun versus, Karen in her addictive state fun? Because it's a horse of a different color, or as we learned earlier, it's a pony of a different color. I didn't know if any of you were at that workshop where they were looking for the pony. But anyway, it's a private joke. I'll tell you later. But anyway, so my sponsor encouraged me to write down things that I always wanted to do, and to not worry about if I could find anybody to go do them with me. One of the things I was a little ashamed of was that I had no artistic exposure. I mean, I lived in the bars. That's where I was looking for my kind of people, my kind of guy. And so she made me join the Houston Museum of Fine Arts. And I had to go to the museum every week and spend a half an hour in front of a painting. I could look around and pick one, and then I had to sit down and just spend at least a half an hour looking at it, and ask myself questions about it, like, well, what is the artist trying to do here? What is in the? I mean, it was really basic, and just really focus on it and not let my brain. Because the first time I did it, I was sitting there looking for who passed by my painting. And then looking around the rest of the museum like, who can I look at that I might get to pass by my painting? And then I thought, no, that's not why we're here today. And then I got it. Yeah, and I was horrified at myself. But it was a good exercise for me. And I found out that I could do things by myself and still have a good time. Because one thing I could not do by myself in recovery at first was eat alone. To me, eating alone in a restaurant by myself, that was like, oh, I'm a failure. I can't even get anybody to eat with me. Translate, when I say anyone, in my disease, it was the guy. Yeah. If only I was still married, he would be eating with me. But I'd be paying for the meal, and we would be having a big fight, and we'd probably end up throwing the food at each other. So, I mean, this is who I am. But on the last page of your printout, I did put down a couple of things that especially the focus of our workshop today is if we're not having a good time, if somebody walks in the door of our program, and I was pretty miserable when I got here. I was in withdrawal. I was pitiful. I mean, I was just like, I had sat in my pity pot so long, I had a golden ring around my ass. And So the newcomer is nervous. Okay, anything we can do to make the newcomer feel welcome is what we want to do. And if we're having a good time, that's going to be the most hopeful thing we can do for the newcomer. I don't remember anything from my first meeting except that people were nice to me. And the woman who became my sponsor came up to me and said, "I will help you. You don't have to act out ever again, and you never have to be lonely again." And I clung to her. And we went out for coffee. And she said she would work with me and take me through the steps. And I mean, I was so hopeful. That's all I remembered. I don't remember anything else. But that was okay. She was happy. I wanted what she had. She had a big smile on her face, and she was well dressed, and her hair wasn't all stringy, and she hadn't spent 4 days under the bed with the dust bunnies because she was just so miserable she couldn't get out from underneath the bed. That's where I was coming from. So the idea that people could laugh and have this disease to me was phenomenal. And Midge, like I said, volunteered me for everything. And one of the things she told me was the benefit of a cookie. Again, no wonder food is an issue. But a cookie makes us feel good. And she said, if you do nothing else for the newcomer, give that newcomer a cookie and a hug and say, "Oh, thank you for being in this program. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in this meeting." She said, "Don't wait for chip time." And that's why I put in a bakery cookie or a gift certificate for 2 cups of Starbucks cookies. I'm trying to get away from the food. I want to get into caffeine and not put sugar in it anymore. And then I found this little quote. It's, "To be able to find joy in another's joy, that is the secret to happiness." And this is why I'm in recovery, because I feel like we have the secret to happiness. And the secret to happiness is service. And where we're with each other and we're being of service to each other, and we're at the beach, or whether we're in Australia at the beach or in Minnesota in the snow, when we're together and doing our social events, we're anchored. And laughter to me is the best medicine. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop the meeting again because we have another latecomer. This meeting is being taped. If you share that, please be aware that this meeting is being taped. And if you do share, you're giving your consent for the tape to be used. Are you a member of the media? Okay, thank you very much. And please remember, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions. I'm just trying to follow orders. I didn't want anybody to get in under the wire and feel left out. We're very inclusive here. Everybody gets the same spiel. We already covered the dance lessons. We've had some good shares about social things that people are doing as part of their recovery, and I want to hear some more.
This is Charlie from Dallas. One of the things that I have brought to our group recently is called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? And it's not necessarily about having dinner, but it's getting 4 people to host an event, different kinds of event, maybe roller skating, maybe bowling, maybe going to a movie, maybe going to the museum, and assigning a number to each one of those, 1 through 4, and then putting numbers, say 4 number 4s and 4 number 1s and 4 numbers 2s in a box, and then asking the people to draw. And so they don't know what event they're going to, nor does a person who is hosting the event know who's coming to the event until we announce it of the day of the event. And so it has to do with the spontaneity of having fun, that you don't know really what you're going to do until you draw what number 4 is and where it's located, and then the person who is hosting it doesn't know who's coming. So there's spontaneity on both ends, and it's also risk-taking, doing something that you haven't planned for and you don't know about, and then going to do that. And then afterwards, after the events are over, everybody gets back together at a coffee shop to talk about their experience. So that's one of the things we're playing around with, is those kinds of activities.
I love that so much. I'm so glad this is being taped. I never buy tapes at conferences. It's like, I'm so cheap. It's like, why should I pay extra? I was at the workshop. That's enough. But I want to hear these ideas because I think these are transportable to every country, every city. I love that because it does introduce the spontaneity. Hey, we're here because we all love intrigue, right? A little mystery. Uh, but this way, it's safe because we're doing it with other people who are committed to recovery. It's like that's why I ran away and joined the Navy. I wanted the adventure, but I had all the big guns at my back. It was a very safe form of adventure, and that's how I feel like when we do things with other recovery people, we can have safe adventures. Thank you again, Charlie. And we have another idea person back here.
I'm Dee, sex and love addict. I remember years ago, I went horseback riding, and it was like through the state park with a group of people, and it was a boyfriend. And then it was a horrible experience. We were on bad terms and everything. And so I wanted to replace that memory because I really loved the horseback riding, but I would get triggered when I saw horses and all that. So I wanted to replace the memory. So I was petrified because I'd never done this before. I've never gotten a group of people together in the program ever. So I just said, well, nobody's going to go. Nobody's going to, come. I had this fear, but I said, let me just send this email anyways. I just sent this email to about 25 men and women in the program. And I started getting replies, and as far as I could tell, there were going to be probably about 3 or 4 of us going. And then when I got there, there were probably like 10 other people already there, and they cooked breakfast there in the trees, and then we rode the horses for an hour. Then afterward, they cooked hamburgers and French fries there, like in the trees, I don't know how to say it, in the forest. And it was wonderful, but and that did replace that memory. So ever since then, I've been getting women together here and there ever since.
Thank you, Dee. I like that. That kind of does the pony, the horses, everything, And okay, we have another idea here.
This is Anna from Atlanta. And I'm particularly interested in these ideas because I'm hearing a lot of activities that are getting men and women together in a recovery sense. I don't know about some of the rest of you, but Anna here has had a hard time with friendships with men. They ended up being love interest. And the idea that I can have males as friends is just a wonderful thought, and I'm glad it's being recorded too because I can't take notes fast enough, and it's a great workshop. Thanks.
Okay, back to Karen. My Rufo the Wonder Dog slammed my wrist into an open patio door, the hook on it, and nothing's broken, but I did some nerve damage, and I'm originally from Brooklyn, so I talk with my hands, and then I forget, and I jam my thumb into stuff, and I re-injured my hand, so I'm having a hard time doing things. I originally was going to write all these great ideas on an easel, and then I thought, no, I can't do that because I was going to write with my left hand, and then now we have a microphone. So I thought, well, no, we're all just going to have to buy the tape. I'm re-emphasize we have to buy the tape. I think we had another volunteer.
I'm Deb from Dallas, and it was real important for my recovery to attend our co-ed gatherings, socials once a month, because first of all, our group is co-ed, and that was a real eye-opener for me. First time to a 12-step to walk in, and the enemy was there. I'm supposed to share with the enemy there. And I grew, and it's enriched my life because I saw the depth of feelings that all human beings have. And then I was still afraid of the social, because in group you can't cross-talk. Nobody can talk to you, all the rules are in place. But it was so safe, and I really needed to know how to socialize with men and women. So that was something that has just been a huge part of my recovery, going to the co-ed socials we have in Dallas.
Deborah, that's a good point that you brought up. I think even if we don't know we have fear, because so many of us were wounded when we got here, depending on our orientation, doing anything social with, depending on our gender orientation, it can be very scary just to even just be around certain situations. When I came to recovery, I was in a professional situation where it was very handy to have men in recovery who were friends, who could accompany me on certain types of professional things, like dinner with Walter Cronkite. The corporation I was working for had that as a sales incentive, and I had to put on the event, and everybody had to be all dressed up, and it was all couples. This was very corporate. I couldn't bring my sponsor. She was a girl, because then everybody in the company would have thought I was a lesbian, and that would have been a whole new issue. But I was real lucky that I had a friend in the program, Tony P. He gave the keynote at the last spring's workshop, and Tony and I have been friends for 17 years. We have never dated. However, we are real good bosom recovery pals. And I'm real close to the gal that he has been dating. And it's all right with her, and it's all right with him that I could borrow Tony for certain corporate date events. And we could have fun because we knew each other, and he's tall, and he owns a tuxedo, and so it was great. And he knows me well enough to say, "Are you sure you want to go back for that third dessert?" and that kind of stuff. So friendships, even if, and it's really funny, because if I had known Tony before recovery, he probably would have been my fourth ex-husband, because we share. He was like so much of the type of guy I used to marry. Adult child of alcoholics, Irish, from the north, tall, blue-eyed. All my husbands looked the same. I didn't know why I bothered divorcing one and getting another one. Yeah, I was so true to type, and I never saw the pattern. Now I can laugh about it. So social events in recovery have helped me with that too. Does anybody else have any thing to report on their recovery efforts in their area of the country or the world that have worked for their group in the way of promoting the social aspect of this program? Okay, we had some latecomers, and again, I'm always afraid people aren't in the right meeting, and then they need to hear, well, this is what we're doing here. When I first got here, I felt guilty also when I had a good time. It meant that I had to let go of the longing that was attached to the relationship that got me here. So I was really kind of resistant to having fun at first, and I had some resentment against the people who were dragging me off to show me a good time. When I was in withdrawal, I had envy against the people who were laughing. At first, I thought they were laughing at me, because I knew I was pitiful, and I thought they were just laughing at me like, ha, 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 look at her, what a jerk, Because in my heart, I knew that I was crying over a guy who wasn't fit to wipe my shoes. But I was drawn to him anyway. So what I would like to explore, since this is an interactive workshop, if some of you could provide how you handle people who are in withdrawal in the social situations that you do participate in recovery. Is there some way that they can still participate, but maybe put the cushions on them so you're not just laughing in their face while they're crying? See, this has been kind of an ongoing situation for me. Not that I suffer from it anymore, but I have had women I've sponsored who've come to like a couple of the Recovery Gals Gone Wild events, and it was like everybody was too happy for them. it was like they were too miserable. It just made them feel worse to see all these happy people in recovery and they're just feeling miserable. It like made them want to call the old person that got them in here. And I was wondering if you all had any ideas about that, or if you do have some social events that are just for newcomers that takes care of that.
This is Charlie from Dallas. One of the things that I noticed in myself is I went bowling with a group of guys one time, and I noticed that my bowling score was higher than everyone else's after the first few frames, and I was getting excited about that. And I thought, this is interesting. I want to be validated here for being, a good bowler. And at the same time, I was also noticing the thing that I was enjoying was the follow-through when I dropped the ball. And I started noticing that the difference between those two different feelings is that one's an internal joy because I was doing something and was really feeling good about what I was doing, versus having outside validation from others that I was doing good. And this was one of the things that I've worked with sponsees about, is connecting into that joy about what they are experiencing and the sort of feeling within themselves that they've done a good job, versus looking outside themselves for somebody to tell them they've done a good job. And I have them do things like, go out and walk in the grass barefooted and feel the sensations first with, touch and smell and those kinds of things to get to that sense of joy that I noticed in myself in recovery, that what I had done is I had shut down all feeling, even just the feeling of touch. And I got to where I would walk through, the fabric stores and just touch the fabric and feel the difference between wool and linen and silk and fur and stuff like that, and notice how it felt on my skin versus, being able to find joy immediately in the fun things of recovery.
Thank you, Charlie. I love that. I'm gonna create a touch board, and I'm gonna put I've got an old mink hat. I think I can cut it up, and I'll put a little swatch of mink on it, and then silk, and everybody's got a satin underwear, right? Yeah, and stuff like that. And just that'd be a neat thing too, is just to blindfold and just touch. I think that would be really neat. One of the things that I haven't done in a long time, because I don't have the kind of home anymore where I can do this. I live in a townhouse, and I think the whole world can look over my fence and see into my backyard, which is like about 10 feet by 4 feet. But when I had a home that had a privacy fence and lots of foliage around it, I used to love to go streaking my own backyard in the rain, because the rain felt so good and the grass felt so springy, and it was great because nobody could see me except me and my higher power. I love it, But like I say, in the little backyard I have now, there'd be about 2,000 people on the fence going, "Why is she doing that?" Yeah. Does anybody else have any ideas of recovery fun and promoting the sense of fun in yourself and your sponsorees?
I'm Carol from Atlanta. And one thing that I like to do is when I was going through withdrawal, I'm pretty spontaneous anyway, and really pretty childish anyway, and like to have a lot of fun anyway. But one thing that I found that was a little bit different, I think, for most people, is I would go down to Barton Springs in Austin with my dog, and I would go swimming, and I'm like over 50 years old, and I would take my goggles and my dog, and I'd be down there swimming and looking at all the fish with all the little 4-year-old kids in the Barton Springs, and I thought that was kind of fun.
I love it, Carol. You brought up a good topic, and that's the power of animals. And I don't mean like the way the boys at Texas A&M do it with the chickens and stuff. But there's nothing like what is it Charlie Brown used to say? Happiness is a warm puppy. And I guarantee if you get a dog and you take that dog for a walk, you can't help but feel better. They are so enthused about life, but you have to be responsible. I'm not sure early on in recovery I could have handled a dog, but I could handle a cat. And at least when the softness of the fur, when I would come home from work and I was in a new place, I was in a new physical, smaller place than I was used to because yet another marriage had ended. It was so nice to have something alive come running up to the door, glad to see me come home. And I think it also kept me from getting too depressed because even though I was under the bed that time, I still got up to feed the animals and take care of them. So I couldn't go too far down. And one of the most fun events that I participated in when I finally did get a dog, when I felt like I had enough sense of responsibility, and it was a rescue situation, and was going to the blessing of the animals at the Christ Church Cathedral in downtown Houston. It's a huge thing, and they had a couple of priests, and they had donkeys and parrots and doggies. And, of course, Rufo, the wonder dog, broke free and jumped in the church fountain. And then all the other dogs broke free, and they all were in the fountain. And we all were milling around, and everybody got to know each other real well after that, you know. So by the time they got to the cookies and the Kool-Aid after the blessing of the animals, everybody knew who Rufo was. Everybody knew who Rufo's mother was. So, I mean, you know, it's a great way. And I've thought about that. Maybe we could have a recovery best pooch day or something, and or do frisbees or something with all our dysfunctional pets, because of course Rufo the wonder dog has got all the hallmarks of my disease. I don't know how your pets act out, but Rufo is, and he's even got food issues. Yeah. That's why the cats have to eat on the counter now, because otherwise he eats their food too. We are about out of time. Does anybody have any other suggestions for fun and recovery? I'm passing bubbles around. They had little bottles of bubble at the banquet last night, but they were too small, so I had to bring some bigger bubbles. And what I like to do is carry bubbles with me. Or another thing that I do is, I don't know if y'all remember those little planes you put together when you were a kid made out of balsa wood. Do you remember them? I always have 2 or 3 of them. And especially the ones I love, the ones with the wind-up propellers that you put the rubber bands on. And I've got like 2 or 3 new ones of those that I just keep in the trunk of my car. And as I'm boogieing around Houston during the day, because I'm self-employed, I will just stop somewhere, because we have a lot of vest park at parks, or just in a parking lot, and I'll put together one of my plants and I'll start running around. And it's like in the River Oaks Shopping Center, here's this woman in her platform pumps, you know, flying, because it just gets me out of myself, you know, and it's fun. And they're so reasonable to buy, they're so cheap to buy, that even if I wreck, and they usually do wreck, because I'm not real aerodynamical, and it's okay, because it's like $1.89 or something like that. They're real cheap. So that's another idea for having fun, is always have a fold-up toy with you. Those little glider things are small enough I can even put one in my handbag. And one time at the headquarters of ExxonMobil downtown, they have a little cafe called Bell Street Cafe down in like the sub-basement level. And I was running around there doing my little glider thing because there was the way the air conditioning ducts were, there was like a really nice breeze. And I thought, oh, this would be a great place to fly my plane. So I did. Yeah. And all these guys in suits are there going, well, golly. Yeah. Because they're all dead anyway. Yeah. And by the time anybody called the security guard, I was already on the escalator waving bye. You know, hit hard, hit fast, make a quick exit. And I hope you all will fill out your evaluation forms. I have more here if anybody was late. Those are the little questionnaires that ask you all about yourself anonymously. Does everybody, if you don't have one, you can get one on the way out. But we've been prompted to close on time. Would you like to join a circle and we'll all say the Serenity Prayer? Okay, now we have to say this really loud so we can pick it up on the tape. I'm going to put the microphone in the middle of the group. And everybody suck it in and have your voice come out from the diaphragm. Don't and say it really loud. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yay!